Hey, thanks for checking out my channel and this video. I'm Tom Neiman and you're watching Paint and Draw with Tom. Today, it's a cold morning, about 19 degrees, maybe a little cooler as you kind of work your way into these shady areas where there's no sun yet and a little moisture from Dunfield Creek. And I kind of gave the punchline away. Today, we're taking a quick hike near the Appalachian Trail in the Delaware Water Gap in the Dunfield Creek section here. And if you look at the Appalachian Trail Club or Mountain Club website, you'll actually find a really good description of this area. They describe this as a fresh spin on an old favorite where hikers can find their way to picturesque Sunfish Pond via the Dunfield Creek Trail. It's a quiet alternative to the Appalachian Trail through New Jersey's Worthington State Forest. This moderate-rated route to Sunfish Pond avoids the tougher climb of Mount Tammany, which we've done on the channel here and hope to do so many, many times. This particular trail that we're going through now, I have a lot of really fond memories of taking this trail with my wife and other times with our family when our children were much younger. And it's always nice to come here and all times of year, but particularly in the warmer months. This environment here along Dunfield Creek actually provides for a tremendous cooling effect. So on a hot summer day, if you have that kind of yearning to go for a hike, this could be a really, really great place to visit. Today we're at the tail end of winter and we've had a pretty decent snowpack here in 2026, which is the year in which this video was filmed. Quite a bit of snow in this area throughout northwestern New Jersey and northeastern Pennsylvania, and the whole region for that matter. Today we're going to take a short hike. It is a work day, so we're here early, and I'm going to get maybe a 10-minute hike in total in. It's a short drive from our home in the Poconos, and I will sit down and do a little mini Plein Air study. And lately I've been kind of following in the big shadow of Remington Robinson, who's a pretty well-known artist who paints on Altoid tin-sized boards and canvases, and actually uses the Altoid mint tin as his facade box and easel. And I'm going to be doing the same thing. It's going to serve as a handheld easel, and we're going to focus on this scene right here. And it is freezing cold, so I do have a little bit of a hand warmer. I'm pretty well dressed. I have thermal underwear and all kinds of stuff keeping me warm, but still feeling the cold, that's for sure. So we're going to get set up here, settled in. The camera work is going to be a little jumpy here for a brief moment, and then you'll see me go through most of the painting process. The total elapsed time, including the hike and the painting process from start to finish, was about 45 minutes. We're going to do some editing just to keep this process within about 30 minutes for you, and you'll see most of it. When painting in this little mini format, it is difficult to, especially if you're kind of going solo like I am, to incorporate camera work that will allow for a detailed description of the brushwork and all the details that you're laying in on your substrate or your canvas, or in this case panel. But we're going to zoom in from time to time so you will get a sense for what's going on my canvas. I'm going to be working in acrylics, so I'm going to have a very limited palette because we're actually going to use the bottom part of the mint tin tray as my palette. We'll have some of the basic colors, including an equivalent to cadmium yellow, ultramarine blue. We'll also use an equivalent to a cadmium red, and we'll have a titanium white And we will incorporate black from time to time and yellow ochre. So we'll go ahead and get ourselves set up and we'll get painting. Those hills, or mountains if you will, that you see in the background just behind those trees, those are the same mountains that form the Delaware Water Gap. So it is a historic landmark, and the mountain on the left side is Mount Tammany, which we've hiked and actually covered on the channel here. The mountain on the right side, which is the Pennsylvania side of the Water Gap, is Mount Mincy, and we've hiked that a few times and actually painted there and covered that on the channel as well. I hope to do both many times because each of those vantage points and the surrounding areas provide for a tremendous amount of interesting subject matter to paint and just view and take in. A lot of beautiful scenery, and they're wonderful hikes as well. Mount Tammany tends to be a little bit more difficult. It's a much steeper climb. Mount Mincy, on the other hand, you can access via the trailhead near Delaware Water Gap Township, or borough rather, and it's a pretty easy access point, pretty level. There are some climbs, there's some boulders and other things that you need to navigate, and some narrower trails, but for the most part, it's a little easier to get to that vantage point there. And today I am going to be painting on a small format. It is a 1 3/4 inch by 3 by 1/4 inch wood panel that's been gessoed. So just some white gesso, 2 or 3 layers sanded in between each layer. Normally I'll have these affixed to the lid of the mint tin using Velcro tape, double-sided Velcro tape. Today I'm just using painter's tape because I've run out of Velcro tape. I have an order that's on its way to my home as we speak, but the painter's tape will do for this short painting session. In pretty dry conditions, it'll work just fine. And what's really important when painting in these little miniature formats is the editing process. You really need to kind of identify the 3 to 5 big main shapes in the scene that you're looking to render. And you need to be disciplined as you make your way through, not to get lost in the detail. It's a very complicated scene. And if I were painting on a larger format, let's say 11 by 14 or bigger, I'd be really tempted to get a lot of detail in, including, maybe stronger rendering of some of these big boulders in the creek bed, and some of the grasses, and some of the branches on the trees and so forth. But today, painting in this small format, even with smaller brushes, it's just too difficult to do. It'll actually ruin the effectiveness of the painting if you try to get stuck in that little bit of detail. So the big objective here is to kind of capture the moment, and in order to do that, you really need to simplify those big shapes. So as you can probably see from this zoomed in image here of the video that you see up on screen, I'm focusing in on those mountains in the background, the inverted triangle that makes up the sky plane, the field of snow on the left-hand side of the creek itself, which takes up a little bit of space relatively on the panel here, and then the mass of land on the right side of the creek and the bridge, and those are the big shapes. So, let's call it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 big shapes right there. And as long as I focus in on kind of refining those shapes and creating some color variance within and amongst those shapes, and value contrasts and some textures within those shapes that are interesting, we could have a nice little painting here when we're done. Alright, so I'm going to lay in a little bit of sky color, and I'm going a little bit colder in as far as color temperature than I intended. So I'm going to warm that up, and I'll probably battle that now throughout the rest of the painting, but that's okay. One of the nice things about working in acrylics is that it dries much faster than oils. So I can always go over the top pretty easily. Even in a plein air setting, painting wet on wet, it'll tack up much more quickly than oils. So I can go right over the top with multiple layers. So if I need to course correct when it comes to my color mixing or refining any of these shapes, not going to be a problem at all. So I'm going to keep plugging away here. We're about 10 or 11 minutes in to this little adventure, and we're almost halfway done. So we're going to keep working, and I'll make some adjustments from time to time. I am getting quite cold right now, and I'm regretting not having my hand warmer set up at the start of this session. Also, while I am, for the most part, alone in the park, this is an early Monday morning session, right around 7:40 a.m., and I still am hearing a little bit of rustling in the bushes, so there's some animal life in there, most likely squirrels and deer and that sort of thing, given that it's March 1st, still wintertime. There was one, maybe two cars in the parking lot, and it looked like maybe somebody was in the process of traveling a long distance and maybe camped out and slept in their car overnight. So I'm a little leery of that sort of dynamic. You just never know who you're going to run into in that kind of scenario. So I'm reluctant to put my hood up because I want to be able to see out of my peripheral vision, what else might be moving around me. Not that I'm paranoid. It's just part of the precautions that you take in order to be safe when you're out in the woods. Focusing in on painting and you're working alone. So I'm going to go ahead and keep plugging away. I am scanning, lifting my eyes up as frequently as I can, scanning the field of vision that I intend to include within the painting, and just looking to build contrast whenever possible. Right now I have a little bit of kind of a mixture of white and blue paint. I'm laying in some suggestion of the snowpack on the left-hand side. Every now and again using it to kind of fill the space for the sky and also the space for Dunfield Creek here as well. If you have been watching the channel for a while and you enjoy this content but haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. Also, please consider liking and sharing this video. It helps get the word out. It helps more people see my work, which is really, really valuable to me, and I really appreciate that immensely. In addition to that, I'll put some reference to it in the notes for this video as I have for others, but just two things that I'll mention. I've started doing workshops as an approved AirBnb Experience provider. I actually have a 5-star rating for my plein air adventures that I host in this area where I'm painting today, actually. And in addition to that, I'm offering workshops that focus on creative visual journaling. So in that case, that's adaptable, to your scenario, to your experience level, and the environment within which you'd like to work. I could come to you, we could work indoors or outdoors, and we'll just walk through the process of building your visual journaling process. In either case, if you're traveling through the Poconos or visiting the Poconos for a short while, you'll get to leave with a wonderful souvenir. If you're come out with me to do a plein air adventure or a journaling session, you'll have some images which you have created with a little bit of guidance from me if you're interested in taking advantage of some of my experience in these areas. And you'll be able to take that home with you, and so will your friends or family, whoever it is that you're traveling with. So check out the information below in the video notes, and if interested, we could adapt the plein air adventure to include maybe a mini plein air painting just like this one we're working on today. A lot of folks find these pretty interesting. It is a wonderful practice to adopt for a couple of reasons. First, you use less material, it takes less time, Some people look at it as lower risk because if you have a disaster of a painting session, it doesn't matter because you have this little jewel of a painting which you could always paint over, or you could just scrape off and restart. And if you do that, if you go that route, you wouldn't have wasted a ton of time. They're also very portable, so you could easily, if you have the panel that you're painting on affixed to the lid, and you have some sort of system like I do where your palette, your paints are set out on a little liner. In my case here, I used a dampened shop towel. You can actually remove all of the paint from your palette and just shut the lid, and you have a built-in carrying system for your wet panel. All right, and I throw them right in my pocket or sometimes in my backpack and head on to the next location or back to the car or truck and head on home. And it's that simple. So really good system. Maybe I'll cover that in a little bit of detail in a future video, but for now, I'm going to finish up this painting. I'll let you enjoy the sounds of Dunfield Creek, which, by the way, is supposed to be chock filled with native trout. So if that's something that you're interested in, you might want to come check this location out for that reason alone. I'm going to go ahead and let you enjoy the sounds of nature. We'll finish up this painting, and then we'll wrap up the video in just a few moments. All right, we're just about done. The last few little notes here before we start packing up and heading on back to the car. But again, I appreciate you checking out this video. Hope you've enjoyed it, maybe taken away a little bit of information that'll encourage you to maybe give one of these little plein air mini paintings a try yourself. And remember, check out the notes of this video for some information on some of the workshops that I run, the plein air book that I've self-published on Amazon, and some of the other helpful information that I make available to you. And as always, don't forget, subscribe if you haven't already done so, like this video, and maybe share with a friend. So there you go. You have a pretty good view of the scene and my painting. Not photorealism in any stretch, but I love these little mini plein air studies. Thanks again.